Hello, and welcome to Good News Rhode Island, the show about Rhode Island and the people and places and events that make Rhode Island a great place to live. We're here today in something that is really good news in Rhode Island, in my opinion anyway. We're at the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation Center, and we're here to learn more about recycling. Every one of us can learn more, and we're affecting the future, and it feels so good to be here to be learning. And I want to thank Krystal Noiseux, who's here as the education person, and I want to thank Katherine Hypolite, who's here as the PR person for the community. So welcome, and thank you for being on Good News Rhode Island. Thank you for welcoming us.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for having us.
We're here because you do a lot of education. Most of us were not raised to be recyclers. We were not used. We did have, as you've already pointed out to me before the show, in World War I and II, people were very careful about what they ate and how they kept all of their goods, even something, I mean, I have quilts that are made with old pieces of fabric because people were reusing and resourcing to one another, for example, even old woolen things. So now we're having to learn all over again. And I thank you for this center, which we've just seen about 50 kids here going through and trying all these games and reading all the posters about what we recycle. So maybe you can do that for us. So thank you for educating us.
Yes.
So both of you are here because you had other training, and you came here because you care very much about recycling. Is that true?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And you are here on a daily basis, taking schools through, and adults, even senior citizens.
Absolutely.
So tell me what we're looking at, or what's the most important thing to begin with. If you say recycle, it seems like it's a circular process. Reuse is a little bit different process, but anyway, why don't you talk to us about the definitions of recycling?
Sure. So people have different motivations for why they recycle. They might do it because they care deeply about environment, natural resources, energy. They might know that it can save money, so it might be an economic reason that they're participating. It might be because their kids come home and bug them about it because they came here on a field trip and they learned it and they're trying to inspire their parents. But at its core, recycling is really nothing more than the provision of raw materials to the manufacturer of new products, so that they're using those old raw materials versus going and having to drill or mine or dredge or clear cut for virgin materials. And so the important part of recycling when we're putting those things in our bins is to think about the importance of not just recycling, but recycling right. And that means only putting those items in your bin that are accepted in the program, but nothing more.
Okay, so you're saying we have natural resources or good resources in our own waste baskets. And those resources can be used again if we're really careful, because at the user level, that's where things are really sorted.
Definitely. So the quality of the materials coming inside the recycling facility determines more than the quality of the end product than what we're doing here with sorting. So we have an amazing facility here, top notch. We use all sorts of different types of sorting techniques, science, technology to get the materials in mixed and then get them out sorted the way that the buyers who are actually doing the recycling want the materials. But the most important piece of this equation is what is the condition of the materials when they come in the door, and that's where all Rhode Islanders come in terms of the decisions that they're making about what's going in their bin.
Okay, we want to have you help us with those.
And just wanted to point out, Krystal was talking about the quality of the material. Recently, we've been seeing just way too much stuff in bins that don't belong. So, we are not trying to create these perfect recyclers, but we're really trying to make sure that there's four categories of material that we're finding. Unfortunately, we're getting things that should never belong in a recycling bin. Things like plastic bags, things like food waste, things like textiles, things that should never ever be put in a recycling bin are finding their way in. And when they do, it really degrades the quality of the material. And if there's too much bad stuff in a bin, it's it's something that we can't process at all, and that material is essentially rejected from our facility, and it has to be landfilled, and that's not what we want to see here.
Okay, so why don't we start with that, with what is recyclable and how do you treat it? How do you care for it? It sounds funny to care for your trash, but that's what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. I constantly on Facebook get the ad for some shoes that are made from recycled plastic. Makes me very irritated because they're very expensive. And so I say, wait a minute, why are these expensive when this material, it's free, the trash is free, is that right? If somebody comes to buy it, no, they have to pay for it.
No, they have to pay for it.
Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Correct.
So let's go ahead and
Yeah.
talk about what's
Sure.
recycled.
So there's 4 categories of materials. There's fiber, metal, glass, and plastic. But within each of those, there's a basic rule to follow. And our biggest problem is resulting in people blatantly breaking the most basic recycling rules. So starting with fiber, what we accept is paper and cardboard that are flat and cartons. That's it. We don't accept anything else made of natural fibers. We get a lot of wood in the facility. As Katherine said, we get a lot of textiles. People are starting to make the leap and throwing in these other things as well. But it's just paper and cardboard that are flattened and cartons.
And clean.
Yes, so, clean, dry material, a little grease on the bottom of a pizza box isn't a big deal. You don't have to lose sleep over that. Anything, within reason is okay. If you have a little bit of grease, you don't have to stress that. And then the cartons, for example, have to be empty at a minimum and then rinsed out whenever it's possible. So that's just like the fiber category, paper,
Okay.
cardboard, cartons.
Okay, and that goes in our big recycle. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And then the next one is metal, and the rule here is cans, lids, and foil. That's it. No other item made of metal on earth belongs in your recycling bin. Cans, lids, and foil. Okay, so like a old frying pan, it's made of metal, but it breaks the most basic recycling rule. It's not a can, lid, or foil. Never belongs in your recycling.
Okay. So then what does one do with one's frying pan?
You have a couple of options. You could always toss it in the trash if that's the easiest and most convenient thing and you don't want to go
So
beyond
it becomes
your bin.
landfill.
Correct. But if you wanted to go beyond your bin and you wanted to do a little bit extra, there are special collections and drop-off programs for scrap metals across Rhode Island. We have a drop-off container here at Resource Recovery. Many cities of towns have drop-offs as well. Some do pickups. It's just that beyond the bin sort of recycling.
Okay, so then there's glass.
Yes. So for glass, the rule here is bottles and jars.
Period.
Easy. Bottles and jars, period. Nothing else on earth made of glass. So your glass tableware and your broken mirrors and your window panes and your glass paperweights, it doesn't matter that they're made of glass. They have to be in the form of a bottle or a jar. That's the rule for glass.
And clean.
And clean, yep. Empty at a minimum, rinsed whenever possible. And then that brings us to the last category, which is plastics. And the rule for plastics is containers. A container can be a bottle, a jug, a jar, a tub, a cup, a bucket, but it has to be in the form of a container. There's a zillion items made of plastic out there. A plastic hanger, for example. It's made of plastic, but it is not a container. It broke the most basic rule of recycling. It never belongs in your bin or cart.
Can you say in some ways the recycle things are things that are in the kitchen?
They're outside
There's
of the kitchen.
more than
They're in the
that,
kitchen.
yeah.
They're in the bathroom. They're in the box that you got in the mail from Amazon. They're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
They're in the laundry room. They're in the garage. They're all over the
Okay.
place.
So when I got dressed this morning, I was a little concerned in that I realized that my pants are plastic, probably have a lot of plastic in them. A lot of clothes now has plastic. What does one do with that kind of thing now? Some of the textiles that don't fit under the paper
Do you want to talk about the textile program?
That's a great question. So Krystal alluded to some of these beyond the bin programs.
Yes.
So just to get back to recycling, what we're talking about here with those rules she went through, we're talking about our mixed recycling program. So things that are going to come to Resource Recovery's materials recycling facility and get sorted by our equipment here. That's one sort of stream of things. But there's this amazing opportunity for beyond the bin programs, whether that be for styrofoam or textiles or scrap metal or cooking oil. There's a lot of ways to still recycle those things, but we don't want them in your household bins. textiles, we have a great opportunity to use the various bins. So if you're ever in like a bank parking lot or a supermarket parking lot, you'll see like a Planet Aid bin or a Big Brothers Big Sisters bin. So all of those bins you can put textiles in. Those textiles have to be clean, dry, and odorless. But all those clothes, so if you have holes in a sock, or you have one sneaker or one pair of high heels, all of those things can go into those textile bins in the community. What can't be resold, in a store, can be repurposed and recycled back into something else. So textiles is one of the things that we see a lot in our materials recycling facility. We do not want textiles in there, but we do want people to drop them off for recycling because it's a great way to keep them out of the landfill.
So some of those places actually take things with holes in them, and they may sell them as weight to somebody who wants to start making sweaters out of recycled wool, for example, or rugs out of recycled wool.
Yep. Things like they make shop rags. A lot of things can come from old textiles. So just because it has a hole in it it doesn't have to go in the trash. It can still have a second life through recycling and repurposing.
So let's talk about reduce, reuse.
Mm-hmm. So reducing means preventing the waste from ever having to be dealt with to begin with, and that means not purchasing something, or borrowing something instead of purchasing something, or if you're purchasing something, you're purchasing it for the long run. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's reducing the amount of waste that even has to be managed at the end of its life to begin with. And then reuse is just keeping materials circulating in our economy as long as possible. That could be from you donating materials, dropping materials off for someone else to reuse. It's also from you buying or getting materials secondhand or used, just keeping them circulating in the economy. And then when it's time to actually get rid of stuff, okay, I didn't reduce it, I can't reuse it anymore. Now you have to ask yourself, is there a recycling program for this? Can I put it in my bin or cart? Does it follow those 4 rules? No. Is there another drop-off program or special pickup? No, and then if not, it goes in the trash.
Okay, so it ends up in that big hill out there if it doesn't do anything else, and that's basically the landfill.
Yep.
All right. If you are in the city, you have much less option for recycling old food, for example, putting it in, feeding the pigs, putting it in compost. So what does one do with composting?
Well, if you're not composting at home, then the food waste would just go in the trash.
Okay, so there's no composting program in Rhode Island.
Well, that's not true. So there are a few subscriptions that you could sign up for where someone would come and pick up the food scraps in a kind of like in a bucket or a pail at your door and swap it out for a fresh one. But those are few far and in between. For the most part, people are either composting at home because they have a little patch of green space and they're just making it work there, or they're putting their food waste in the trash.
Do you mind if I chime in quickly?
Sure.
And I do think there is a misnomer that people in urban areas aren't or can't compost. For example, we have a very, very successful vermicompost operation happening right now in Krystal's cubicle. So no green space, no nothing. To have backyard composting, what you need about 3 feet of space. So even if you're in Providence or Pawtucket or an urban area, Krystal lives in Pawtucket. She has 2 bins that she composts in her backyard. We actually sell bins here for $45. So you can be very creative if you want to reduce your food scraps through backyard composting.
And then you put them into your yard because you're growing something else the next year.
Yep. And the compost that we have in our operation here and that some of the backyard composting that people do create just beautiful, beautiful compost. And it's just a great way to keep those organics out of the central landfill.
Okay. So what else do you have here that you're trying to teach us about? I was interested to see that you can now take large plastic bottles. That is a big news to me because I'm in another state as well and we have to throw them away.
Yep, so you just have to remember in Rhode Island the rule for plastics is containers. And so if you have a plastic item in your hand and you know that rule is containers and you say this is a container and you're applying
detergent
that
bottles included. That is
if you're
such good news.
You just have to learn those 4 basic rules and then apply them in good faith. Is your recycling going to be perfect? No. Do we need it to be perfect? Nope. We have a state-of-the-art facility here, but we need people to limit what they're putting in their bins to paper, cardboard, and cartons, metal cans, lids, and foil, glass bottles and jars, and plastic containers. Empty at a minimum all those containers, rinse whenever possible, and Catherine already alluded to this earlier, no plastic bags, no recycling inside of plastic bags. Some people have very, very good intentions. They're putting all their recycling in plastic bags, they're tying it up, they're throwing it in, they're recycling. The facility here cannot sort recyclables that aren't loose.
Okay, and I also read over there that greasy pizza boxes are now recyclable.
A little bit of grease on the bottom of a pizza box is just fine. If it's completely soaked with grease, sauce, cheese, pepperoni, not so fine. But 9 times out of 10, you just have a little bit of grease left over in the bottom of the box. You can flatten it and you can recycle it.
Okay, so there's another display over there. It says what's under there, and it talks about the layers that now happen in a landfill. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the engineers here design the landfill so that the trash is protected, or the surrounding environment is protected from the trash. So they're really trying to protect the air, the water, the wildlife, and the people. And they use a pretty complex layering system underneath the trash and then on top of the trash as well. And this is to prevent any of the liquid that would seep through the trash from ever going into our groundwater. And it's also to keep the air surrounding free of litter and trash, and so it's a protective baseliner and a capping system that seals off the trash from the surrounding environment. It's much more complicated than that,
Okay.
but to not go on a 30-minute engineering talk.
Cliff Notes version.
Is they have
Okay.
to do a lot to protect all of the surrounding environment from our trash.
But I was under the impression that we wanted things to decompose.
We want to protect the air, the water, the wildlife, and the people right now. So if you want things to decompose, you have to keep those organic things that decompose out of the landfill, out of the trash, and compost them. But if you are putting them in the trash and it's with mixed waste, we have to seal that trash away from all of the surrounding environment and the people to protect public health.
So you're creating a
decomposition is-
fabulous archaeological dig for
Absolutely.
1,000 years from now.
Absolutely, and the gas, the trash, because of the way that the engineers design the landfill, it produces gas inside of the landfill, and we actually can vacuum out that gas and send it to the power plant across the street, and it produces electricity. So it produces enough electricity to power about 26,000 homes in Rhode Island every year.
What?
Yes, from the trash. So it is an environmental engineering marvel what they have to do. Absolutely. And a lot of times people will say like, oh, landfill, that's something that's bad for the environment. The amount of trash that we produce, us included here, right? Maybe not so hot for the environment, but the landfill is an amazing environmental engineering structure that protects the surrounding environment from our trash. And so the landfill is actually very good for the environment. Thank
So
goodness we
what
have
gas is it that gets produced? I'm sorry, I'm just...
It's about half methane and half carbon dioxide, and then it has a trace amount of other gases. Yeah.
Some interesting stuff, right?
Okay, is there some subject that I have not
I
covered?
would love you to talk about the campaign.
Of course.
Oh, yes, you have a new campaign starting.
We do have a new campaign. So
Today, as a matter of fact.
today, yeah, May 1st is the official launch of it. So obviously, Krystal and I, we always are here for people, and Resource Recovery is always here for people looking for information about how to recycle and how to properly dispose of their waste. But every couple of years, we really need to get out in a big way and get the message of recycling right out. So we've teamed up with Recycle Across America. So Resource Recovery has a standardized recycling label that you'll see right there that are we've been affixing to bins and carts around the state to promote proper recycling. So these labels are kind of like a stop sign. You've seen bins and carts, they all look different and they all come in different sizes. So it can be a little confusing for people. But these labels are sort of a stop sign that people can see and know, okay, this is a recycling bin. These are the things that go in that recycling bin. So along with that partnership that we have with Recycle Across America, we've created a public education campaign called Let's Recycle Right. And the rally cry, Let's Recycle Right, goes back to what Krystal said. We only want people to recycle things that are accepted in our program and nothing more. No wish cycling, no hoping the magical fairy will come and turn it into something else. Only putting those 4 categories in.
Or my little thing won't matter, is what we think, right? I'll throw this in and they won't notice.
Exactly. So a part of the campaign is this PSA aspect, and we have the national campaign from Recycle Across America has lots of celebrities who are putting out this message. So Kristen Bell, Johnny Galecki, Whoopi Goldberg, and we loved that fun, exciting part of that campaign. But we're Rhode Island, and so we really wanted to Rhode Island-ify the campaign. So what we did is we held an event. This is actually the reboot of our campaign because we first launched it in 2012. So we got local Rhode Islanders who have, influence to come, to take pictures and share this message. So this year, along with some of the others, so we've had Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee, Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea, Ed Tarbox of Tarbox Toyota, Rhodey the Ram of URI, all of these people who are saying, let's recycle right. But this year, we've actually added a new celebrity, which is Governor Gina Raimondo. So we are super excited to have her participation in the campaign. There was recently the task force tackling plastics. It's a big thing in Rhode Island, trying to keep our waterways beautiful and clean. We are the ocean state. So she is our new ambassador for plastics recycling. So starting today, Rhode Islanders from Woonsocket to Westerly are going to be seeing Let's Recycle Right campaign messages on ripped up buses, social media, hear Governor Raimondo's new radio ad, and it's always going to have that message of recycling right. So that's what we're up to.
Wow,
and
it's
exciting.
big. It's big. It's national.
It is national.
And it's forward thinking, certainly.
And that's something that we're proud of. Little Rhode Island, little ocean state, we're part of a national movement to create better recycling. And we're proud of that.
You make me think of beaches.
Yeah.
And you two must have something to say about beaches. Cleaning up beaches and the fact that we are the ocean state, and yet no matter where you go, you see that there is trash.
And a lot of the things that you find in the ocean or in the waterways are things that can be recycled. You're seeing lots of water bottles. We don't want those water bottles in the Narragansett Bay. We want them in the materials recycling facility. That's where they belong. That's where they should be.
Okay, but who's going to buy those plastic containers? What kind of things are made? I know there's shoes, I already said that. But
Yeah, so sometimes we know exactly what it's going to turn out to be, and then other times we just know potentially. So an example with plastic bottles is often turned into polyester or fleece material. Something like our aluminum cans, we know go to become aluminum drinking cans once again. So, plastic bags that are collected through the program back at stores. So every very large Rhode Island store has a plastic bag drop-off container. It's another one of those beyond the bin programs, right? They're never supposed to be in your bin. They can go on to make the alternative to wood decking material. The company is called Trex in Virginia. So sometimes we know exactly what it's going to become, and other times we just know what types of materials are often using recycled feedstock.
it's play equipment, it's road surfaces.
Yep, all different types of things.
And outdoor furniture, all kinds of things.
Yep.
Okay, I have two conflicting things to say. First of all, I read an article that said that we weren't going to be able to continue composting and that the composting wasn't working well. And I also read about China saying they did not want to receive a lot of our compost now or a lot of our recyclables. Can you talk about that for us?
So the composting program we have here is just leaf and yard debris, and that program is going strong. So I can't really speak to what the story was that said we couldn't do that anymore. We compost about 40,000 tons of leaf and yard waste here every year. With the recycling with China just got so sick of the amount of trash winding up in the recycling, just like we kind of are here. We understand where they're coming from. And so a year before they shut their doors to all U.S. imports, we had a warning. And we did quite a few things. We upgraded the equipment in the materials recycling facility. We did some operational tweaks. We onboarded all of our sorting staff as full-time corporation employees. And we launched the first phase of the Let's Recycle Right campaign and getting these standardized labels on bins across the state. And so we, in that year, improved the quality of the recycling and diversified where we could send our materials. At that time, Rhode Island was actually only sending some paper and cardboard to China. Other places in the country were sending all of their recyclables there. We weren't in that position. And so we were able to diversify where we were sending some paper and cardboard, and none of our materials go to China. And all of our materials are continuing to move. So Rhode Island has a much more hopeful story to tell about recycling
I'd
versus
rather
some
keep
of
it
our
in this
partners.
country and recycle it and use it, reuse.
If there are manufacturers here that are willing to buy it, that's best.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Let's go see what's going on. Okay, we're upstairs now, and we're looking at the final moments of operation of sorting papers. And it's really pretty amazing when you're here. It's all done by human beings at the end. There's a huge conveyor belt that has tons and tons of materials coming across it. So talk to us a little bit about this and these kind of jobs.
Sure, so the materials come in all mixed together in the front end, and there's waste inspectors there that are going to decide if the load is fully passing, most loads are, or partially rejected, meaning a part of the load is really contaminated with trash, or in some cases the entire load is just chock full of trash and we can't process it. Most of the loads are passing and go through, and then they start through the sorting and quality control process, and we use a combination of mechanics, optical sorting, and yes, people, manual sorting here. So an example of mechanical sorting is star screens, and star screens just move in such a way that a targeted material will move up and over while everything else will kind of fall down underneath. And we use those to sort out things like large cardboard, light fluffy paper, and keep containers away from paper as well. Another example of mechanical sorting, magnets. We use permanent magnets to pick up the steel and tin cans and lids. We use something called an eddy current separator to kind of jolt the aluminum cans and foil off of the belt.
It's really cool.
It is. It's really cool. If you don't, it looks like magic, but it's physics. And then we use optical sorters as well, which can target a material based on its shape, its color, its type of resin that a plastic was made out of, and it will target it and blast it off the belt accordingly. So tons of technology, but of course it's not perfect. So you always need people here doing quality control, both pulling off things that don't belong because they were just trash and didn't belong in the recycling bin to begin with, or grabbing an item that is a recyclable and it just wound up on the wrong belt because the system isn't perfect. So there's multiple opportunities as you progress through the facility to get things right, grab something, get it to where it needs to go next. At the end here, they're doing the final line of sort of quality control before we actually bale up the materials. So we're making these huge, compact, dense cubes of each material type, and that is what we sell to recyclers. And they're going to go on and make the actual products. They're going to make new things from old things.
And your work here takes how long from beginning to end?
We run an 8-hour shift every day, and on Saturdays sometimes we run, but mostly we're here just doing preventative maintenance and cleaning of the facility to start again the next collection week.
It does look a little dusty.
Yeah, the cardboard does build up
yeah,
dust for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the people here are trained in recycling, is that right?
Depending on their job, yes. So they could have a job in sorting, they could oversee sorters, they could run some of the equipment, some of the quality control processes, drive a forklift. So there's all different jobs that make the whole system work.
All right, have we forgotten anything as we've talked since we came today?
Well, I think if people want to learn more and they want to be able to just refer back to those basic recycling rules, they can go to our website, which is rirrc.org. And you can go right to one of the main menu items, which is recycling, composting, proper disposal, and check out what to recycle in your bin or cart.
Okay, if people want to do what you're doing, are you scientists?
I'm trained in the field of communication, so my job is to get the messaging out, whereas Krystal,
Yep, I was initially trained as a scientist and then transitioned into science education.
So basically, you both have the background that you need to do this job, and you're helping Rhode Island.
we like to
We
think
like to
so.
think so.
No, I mean, but what I'm saying is you're so well suited for this. I mean, you really got us excited about it. So thanks for your enthusiasm.
course.
Thanks for your
coming to
tour.
visit.
So Krystal and Katherine, thank you so much. And
Thanks
we
for having
certainly
us.
wish you the best. Thank you for watching Good News Rhode Island. We love showing you all the people that are working behind the scenes to make Rhode Island a great place to live.